Hey, thanks so much for tuning into The Narrative with Sam Collier. My name's Sam Collier, and I'm excited today to be with legends. I mean, legends in the music industry who have now forged a relationship and a project that's introducing the sound of R&B in a unique way to the Christian market. We want to give a big shout out to Capital Christian and the guys over at Rethink. But listen, if you ever turned on a radio, you have heard some of their music. I want to talk about the first gentleman that's sitting to my left. You've heard Sweet Dreams by Beyonce. You've heard There Goes My Baby, which I just found out in the airport and lost my mind. You've heard Throwback by Usher, which I've listened to 1,000 times. Motivation by Kelly Rowland. He's a Grammy award-winning songwriter, and he loves Jesus. Rico Love is in the building. How are you, man?
How you doing?
Such an honor. Such an honor.
Pleasure's mine.
The gentleman to his left, they've been brothers for a long time. He's a brother of mine, and now I've got a new brother, and I'm excited about it. We also got to shout out Edward Long. Thank you for the connection. Grammy nominated, from Marcus Houston to Omarion to Sierra. Should we just keep, all of the things. Pierre Medor is in the building, one of the best pens in the game. But together, they've had quite the journey, and we're going to talk about it today. So I want to tell you this before we get started. Call somebody, text them, email them, tell them they need to watch this interview right now because it's getting ready to go down. P, we start every time with a song. Okay. Introduce the song for us.
Well, the song is called Live, and it's featuring my brother Rico Love. So honored that he jumped on the record with us. Hope you enjoy it. Take a listen.
We'll be back.
You promised me a purpose and a plan. I wanna live for you. Wanna lay my life down at your service.
Well, I don't know where to start. This relationship and project started in P's basement, and I went to his house and I said, man, we've got this unique relationship with Capital Christian, and we want to do something new. All around the industry right now, this whole idea of Christian R&B is popping up. And you got guys, it's going viral on TikTok and on YouTube and all. And I said, man, what if we got with some real R&B dudes that just happened to love Jesus and presented it? It's a new concept. And so this was born. While we were in the studio, we started talking about who could be featured on the project and who could really break open this idea of loving God, bridging the gap between culture and the church. And he said, Rico. I was like, well, do you think he would do the song? He was like, he's my friend, right? He might. And so when it came back, it's just been unbelievable, the sound. I'd love to start with just y'all talking about your brotherhood. I know Division I is a big part of the story. What can y'all walk me from, and this is going to be kind of a big question, from the beginning, kind of the Corner Boys days, up to Division I, how y'all came together and all of that?
Well, Corner Boys were working at the corner. That's where they got their name from. The corner is Cal Norman's house. And they were working down there, and I would come, my friend BJ, was like a brother to me.
Yeah.
And he was an artist signed to Street Cats.
Street Cats.
Or it's
581.
We signed to 581, which is the twins from Jagged Edge. They had a label. So I was introduced to the whole situation through BJ. And me and my manager, Cersei, we would go down there a lot. And I kind of was like the adopted cousin, right, to the whole situation. And I just used to pester the guys every day, like, yo, can y'all work with me? They work on all day, working on Angel, which is a group, ANJEL was a group that Jagged Edge had, a female group that had with Latoya and Tavia and Nadi. And they were working on this group, but the Corner Boys were down there tracking every day, and I thought they were incredible. Right. So I would just beg them, like, yo, when can I get in? Can I work? And I would write raps, and they were like, yo, we busy. So one night, I had never been to Magic City. So Twin and them were going to Magic City. It's like, you want to go to Magic? I'm like, of course, I've never been.
Right.
So I went to go. And then right before I was leaving, D-Town came up and said, yo, we just going to be working if you want to work. Let's work. So I said, I'm not going to Magic. I stayed. I went back downstairs, And we worked from about 10 p.m. to literally 11 a.m. the next day. Like literally, we stayed in the studio all night.
Wasn't like it's almost like 6, 7 records we did back to back.
Yeah, back to back. And I just kept writing songs. They kept producing them. I kept writing raps and songs and records, and we were just nonstop. And it was the most, probably in my beginning of my career, it's the most I've ever recorded. And at one time. And man, we was inseparable since then. We locked in. We literally became brothers at that point.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we kind of never, for about, years and years, many years after that,
Right.
we had never, we kind of just stayed locked in. For me, sleeping on their couch when they got their first apartment, it just became a bond. But it was bred through our love for music and them saying like, yo, this guy's persistent.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing nothing tonight. You want to come down? So then it was kind of happened like that.
Man,
he jump in,
listen,
please.
I'm just taking all the self-control in me because I gotta let him tell it. First of all, he's the apex of cool, right? So he's not gonna tell you the color. I'm the emotional guy, so I'm gonna give y'all the visceral detail. Rico was so persistent. When he first came around, I was like, who is this guy? Right town. He keeps asking me, can he record? Bro, I'm trying to make these beats.
Yeah,
man.
every time they would have a down second. Like they be working all day, but if they had a minute, they would stop and eat. I'd be like, can I go down and...
He like literally had no, he was just
How old
like...
were y'all at this time?
I was 17.
Yeah, we're fresh 18.
Yeah.
Wow. College?
Yeah. I was in, they had left school.
Okay.
Now that's the part that was impressive about, and I'll let him tell that, but like when he shared his narrative, because that night we got to know a lot about each other, and he was sharing how he was running up his credit cards every weekend to get here to do music.
Yeah.
And I was like, it deepened the level of respect, because you don't realize the sense of urgency that people have a lot of times is born out of just the hunger. Like, and hunger produces that type of tenacity that's just, is palpable.
When you say here, what do you mean? So
Atlanta, I was, at that point, I was just catching I would catch rides at that point.
Wow.
My man Chad Roper, he would drive me sometimes. This was before I met Ed. I didn't meet Ed until like the next year.
Yeah.
But I would meet with Ed and it would take me, but first few times it was C-Note drive me, or it would be a random person. And then I got a credit card on campus, 2 credit cards. One was for $850 limit and one was a $300 limit. I didn't buy anything with those credit cards except bus tickets. So I would use the card just to have a bus ticket to get, just to get there, get to Atlanta every weekend. And when you're doing it, you don't realize the commitment. You just like, I got to get there. You know what I mean? So I was just so anxious to get out there, man. It was just crazy.
And was that from Florida?
Yeah,
from Florida.
Tallahassee.
P, you want to add anything else? But I mean, I got a lot of questions.
Listen, that's the story.
So, okay, wait. So this is an interesting dynamic, because when you look at both of your journeys a little bit, you would think Rico came first and then you came, but it was like you and then Rico, and then the Corner Boys became a thing.
Yes.
And then Rico was coming to the crib.
Yes.
How did the Corner Boys become a thing?
Corner Boys became a thing. We were freshmen at University of Hartford.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine's on campus introduced me to D-Town. D-Town was the only other person on campus who had a keyboard that was like my keyboard.
Yeah.
And so we connected over that. And then before you know it, it was second semester. We weren't going to any classes. So we were just literally making beats every day. We ended up getting an opportunity to be the house band for a talent show that Miss Linda Casey was putting on, which is Brennan and Brian's mom. And
Jagged Edge.
Jagged Edge.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Please interject. Help me.
Just for the people watching. Yeah.
But yeah, so we ended up playing at this talent show, and the music that part of our job was to recreate the music that the contestants were performing.
Yeah.
And so in that, she got a chance to hear our production prowess, or our musicianship. And from there, an opportunity opened up where their band kind of fell through, that they were getting ready to go on tour with at the time. They were getting ready to go on tour with Mary J. Blige, I believe. And it opened up the door for opportunity for us to come to Atlanta to audition to be their band, essentially. Now, it's a story for another day. We won't get into it. but I blow it, okay? That's small detail. We'll get into that another time.
Right.
But this literally opens the door for us to immediately dive into an opportunity to produce with Brandon and Brian from Jagged Edge. And Kyle, like you mentioned earlier, Kyle had a studio and it was called The Corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going there every day, basically just figuring it out, finding our sound and learning the ropes. And so one day we show up and Kyle comes to the door, and in typical Kyle fashion, and I'm sure you got so many beautiful Kyle stories. We love Kyle. Kyle is our big brother, and Kyle says to us, he said, "Shout it, I'm gonna name y'all the Corner Boys." And we was like, we're all Northeastern kids, right? So we come down, we're like, that's country. Like, what? Corner Boys? We didn't understand. We didn't put two and two together. I mean, understanding the street inference, of course, but it was just the way that he said it. It felt very, local, and like, we didn't get the cultural inference of it, but it stuck with us from that point on, and we were the Corner Boys at that point. So that was the beginning of us as the Corner Boys, myself, D-Town, and Daniel Moore, and then later our brother Tyrell Bing was a part of that initial four.
Wow. What was, and then I'm gonna go to Rico for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
What was the big first hit from the Corner Boys?
The big first, well, I would say our first placement came within our first year of being here. So it wasn't a huge hit, but the album was a huge album. We were on the third album, Jagged Little Thrill. Yep. Third album from Jagged Edge. And
so Jagged Edge was the beginning.
Oh man, they're the genesis.
Was it Disco's Out?
Yeah, Disco's Out. Yeah. Hood classic, man.
Yeah, that was a vibe. Man.
And then Marcus Houston, Omarion, other things, and
all of that is now you're coming into the vein of us being alive.
Okay. Wait, before we go.
Go.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to go forward. When you hear songs like "Sweet Dreams" and these are like, there goes these are like R&B anthems.
Absolutely.
And I remember a little bit when you first got signed to Usher. I don't want to give the story away, but I know you were signed as an artist.
Rap artist.
A rap artist initially. And so to see you go from that to these massive songs. I want to go back to the beginning of when you first knew you could write.
No, I didn't. It's funny because you absorb. So a person like myself and other, I would consider other great people, right?
Yeah.
You can't sit in a room without observing everything and taking everything in. So I'm paying attention to these three guys behind the camera. I'm paying attention to the way this room is set up. It's innate for me. So it's not even something that I'm trying to do. It's something that I'm always going to take with me. So for instance, before the cameras roll, I want to know how the shot is set up and because I've been in these rooms. So you start picking up things. So being in rooms, watching guys write records, I was watching the work ethic. Brandon and Brian had a similar work ethic to Jermaine, and that's the thing where they got their work ethic from. So Jermaine and Brandon and Brian had this thing where 8 a.m, they would be in the studio. It was insane. Like, I'm not making this up. They would get up early in the morning, they would go to the gym, and then they would go to the studio. We didn't see them at the gym. We just saw that they would show up early in the morning and they would be in the studio and they would write all day. And then they would go to the club and then they would come, sleep for maybe an hour or two. I don't know when they slept, but they would get up and go to the studio every day. And then on the weekends, they would travel to tour, like do shows, do stuff like that. So while they were doing shows on the weekends, that's when I started to come down because I was going to college. So in the summer is when we first linked. So it was more like consistent. But during their, while Twin and Jagged Edge was out on the road, the studio would be open for me to come in and work. And then obviously when the relationship severed between ourselves, the Corner Boys and 581, I stayed locked in with them. So we started working, but I saw the pattern of how they worked. And that's the thing I observed. So watching them write consistently, watching, Brandon didn't use a pen or paper. He would just go in and sing the ideas. Brian would write things down, but it was like on the fly and, but, I watched their process And then I didn't realize I was learning and soaking it up. So when it was time for me to do something, it was innate. It was quickly that I jumped in it and wrote Throwback in a car outside of our Red Zone studio on a flip phone. But it was because I observed this. And then watching Pierre produce vocals every day. So Pierre was the only one who, and Daniel, but Daniel didn't like producing vocals. Right? Like,
he did it. But Daniel taught me a lot.
But his arrangement was always incredible. But so watching these guys produce vocals every day, I didn't even realize how that was sculpting me into a songwriter. And then when I started producing vocals, it's beautiful because I was using all the things that I knew, but I was free to do things that weren't correct, because sometimes when you don't know the rules, you play the game better. So I wasn't stuck in this place because I just would do whatever. And then I would realize I started creating a sound for myself, you know, kind of like morphed into the things I learned from those guys. So when it comes to how I developed or how I knew, I didn't know I could do any of it, but I just sat in the room and watched the guys for so long that when it was my turn or when opportunity presented itself, I just knew how to jump in. And I think that that's my superpower more than anything is observation. And also, I don't believe that any of us are bigger or greater than the music. So it's a level of reverence that I've always given to God. There's a extreme level of confidence that I have that I've never belittled people because of it, but I always respect the gift. So when you respect the gift, your student, it's almost like you're a slave to the gift. Like the gift tells you what to do, you know, and you know, like we all know the gift make room for you. And that's probably why we should respect our gifts so much, because it's almost like the gift is telling, all right, the gift is the 16 Huskies, right? You got 16 Huskies in front of you and you might whip them, but they are in charge.
Right. That's right. That's right.
You know, so you're the one doing this. But if they just say, you know what, I don't feel like moving. Yeah. You ain't going nowhere. I don't care who got the whip. I don't care who. So you really are a slave to the gift, and the gift is kind of like a force. So I always respect and have reverence for the gift, and I have humility towards God. And I am a king amongst men. So a lot of people will confuse that humility. So my humility isn't towards you. And I respect you both very much. But I'm not humble towards you. I'm a king.
That's right.
Now a king looks you in the eye. A king is respectful. A king is on time. A king is courteous. A king is peaceful. A king knows when to be forceful. But a king is supposed to be full of love. A lot of times people mistake the two and they think, oh, you stay humble. No, I'm already humble. I'm humble, but towards God and towards my gift. But amongst you, I'm a king. And the way kings behave is a certain level of class and honor. So I'm saying it to say, the gift is what I really followed. And when I followed the gift, it led me where I needed to go and paying attention. And I think the true gift, again, is my ability to observe and to absorb and adapt.
Mm-hmm. P, when did you see the spark happen with Rico?
Well, it's so funny. You know, in these interviews, we gloss past such significant things, but it's,
talk
you know,
about it.
Things are coming to mind even as I'm hearing Rico talk. It's like, you know, he was always just a brilliant writer, always could write on the fly, whole ideas, whole concepts, flesh them out quickly. Like when it came, like that initial night we worked, I believe some of those songs were things you had already conceptualized in your mind, like, because you would tell us,
I was giving you guys idea. I wrote this.
You were producing that night.
Yeah.
Like, yo, this is the beat. I hear it going like this, da 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 da. And we would literally take that, put it together.
Yeah.
And it was that kind of.
Yeah, that's how the first 3 or 4 songs came.
Absolutely.
Was songs that I had written that I was like, I needed beats for. And I would sing the hook or the melody. Yeah. And, you know, I remember with the song called You Are Not Cute. You are not cute. We flipped the jump on it, yeah. So it was things that I had, you know, had written in my dorm room or things I had written in high school because I was only a freshman at the time at FAMU. So yeah, it was like creating that.
And I have to testify. Now he shared a little bit with this on another podcast, and I was laughing when I heard it because it's probably one of the first times I heard him actually share that piece of the story. Yeah. But a cautionary tale. Be careful how you become common with peculiar gifts, right? He came to me one day, he said, Pierre, I need you to demo this record for me. I was like, I hadn't known him to write songs at that time. Now, in the meantime, I'm full throttle. We're writing and producing songs, lyric melody. Rico, in my mind, to that point, or my threshold was, he's a rapper. Yeah, of course, it's going to be a great song on the helm, but not lyric melody yet. I hadn't been introduced to that side of him. He comes to me humbly, as he said, Pierre, would you demo this song for me? And then me and my sense of priority about what was important at the time, I said, Rico, not again. I said, no, I can't right now. So he said, cool. He goes next door to another brother of ours.
I was singing the melody in my phone, and JQ heard it and said, he said, I could demo that. Like he listened, he was like, I could demo that. That sounds like something. And he demoed it, and that's how it's, yeah. But to be all fair, when JQ demoed it, he did an ad lib and said, I wish I could throw it back to the way it used to be. So, which changed the trajectory of everything, because he said, can we call the song Throwback? Now, I wrote all of the lyric and melody, but it was I didn't name the song Throwback. JQ named the song Throwback. So when he sang the demo, he said, I wish I could throw it back to the way it used to be. And then he said, I was thinking, the throwback jerseys are in right now. We should call the song Throwback. It's a sample song, and blah, blah, blah. And back then it was only Kanye and Just Blaze who did samples, well, not only, but in mainstream, they were the most successful. Obviously, I know No ID and P-Rock and all those guys, and Bink, all those guys. Yeah. But as far as mainstream, visible producers, it was Kanye and Just Blaze, and Just Blaze obviously did that track. So when he said Throwback, it was in line with the culture, and I just think that helped push the song through. Because to be honest with you, when I gave this song to Terrence Carter, and I said I wrote this song, and he heard it, and he was calling Usher like, yo, because they had the track for so long, and they were trying to find somebody to demo it. So when Usher brought it to me, he said, look, everybody been trying to write to this, bro. So this your shot. And he said to me, I'm gonna sell 10 million. So you want to be on this.
So just that just further iterate, the breaking of that threshold of being known for one thing, and the whole time, I believe that you always knew how special the gift is that you carry, and also I if I'm being honest, looking back on it, you knew how limitless your potential was always. Yeah. So that was an immediate lesson. Now, I say that's important too, because it's kind of a pivot point of even this full circle moment, because the next time Rico came and asked me to do something was the beginning of the momentum of Corner Boys and Rico Love.
We did I Wish. Yeah. It's crazy because I Wish was I wrote it to some track that somebody gave me on the street. And we couldn't find the guys. We did our due diligence to find out who produced it. We couldn't. So it was like, we tried. So reproduce it. And they reproduced I Wish. But he had already did the demo for me to the original music. We literally could not find the guys. You know what I mean? We would never do shady business or but we was like trying to find out who did the beat. Right. So he's like, let's just reproduce it. Yeah. So we reproduced it, and then there was I Wish, which was for Omarion. Yeah. We did a Wish before we did All Because of You.
You remember KP pulling up to the studio? Yeah. You go out to the car with him.
And he said to me, I'm gonna on tour, he told me, don't say anything, but Omarion's gonna leave B2K. But just keep that between us, and I'm about to do the Omarion album. I said, cool, all right, cool. I left. I said, Omarion about to leave B2K, bro. we gotta get on this Omarion. But because I wrote Throwback, that was literally every A&Rs in the music business, that was their favorite song. So sometimes the record that isn't the single ends up being, and I think even radio played this song a lot. I think I did really well on my, I think I was ASCAP at the time. I did really well on my performance on that song. I mean, obviously, granted that it wasn't a single, but because it was a lot of A&R's favorite record, it kind of pushed the needle for us. But I'm gonna tell you that my loyalty is really what got us, and I'm gonna I can stand on this. My loyalty is what got us all the way here, even to this point today. Because when they signed with Red Zone, that's how we got a space.
Let's talk about it.
But Red Zone called me in because they heard me rap and wanted to sign me.
That's right.
But when I went to the meeting, I took them with me.
That's right.
And I said to them, well, I'm not doing no music. Like right in the Red Zone office in front of Tricky Stewart. You know what I mean? The legendary Tricky Stewart.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in front of his face and I said, well, I'm not doing any music if they don't produce it. So they're like, yeah, but we're a production company. We want to sign you so we can produce it. I was like, yeah, well, that's not how I'm rocking. So it's like, all right. So then they stopped talking to me and they signed them. Yeah, it was crazy. So that's how we got in that space.
Yeah.
Was me saying, like, nah, that's it. Even when I got my record deal, it wasn't until the very end, right before the label, Usher dropped the label, that I started working with other producers. I told Usher and told J Records, I'm not working with anybody but the Corner Boys.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was we started hitting the ceiling. We didn't know how to make hits at that time.
Right.
So that's when I started getting in with Cool and Dre and getting in with Swiss Beats and working with different producers. It was at the very end when it was like almost like they were exhausted with the whole label idea. But it was because of me saying, this is the only way I'll do this. You know what I mean? So some people would say loyal to a fault, but I don't believe it's ever to a fault because it led to certain things, you know what I mean? Sure. You know, so it's crazy because us standing on, or me particularly standing on the friendship. I remember being in screaming and shouting matches with Dan and Tyrell because I just didn't understand why they didn't want to work. You know what I mean? I would be like, let's just write. I used to tell them, if I knew how to write songs, I would write songs every day.
Ooh, caveat. So Dan, like I mentioned before, Dan and Tyrell are a part of the original four. Corner Boys was 2 producers and 2 writers.
Okay. Real quick, what some of the biggest songs Corner Boys were a part of?
Biggest songs, I mean, obviously we mentioned some of them. All Because of You by Marcus Houston.
Yep.
I'm Gonna Change, Omarion, I Wish. Obviously the records with Jagged Edge.
To be totally honest though, the Corner Boys was like, the legend of the Corner Boys is bigger than the actual music of the Corner Boys. Because they were so gifted, the energy spread around the internet before the internet was big. So the energy around the Corner Boys became extremely popular. And the music that they did individually after disbanding was the music that came more. Like when P and I did Promise for Romeo Santos, so we did Touching You for Rick Ross and Usher. Like, so I think that when people ask the question about the Corner Boys, because they grew up hearing about the Corner Boys, they perceive that as a collective, the Corner Boys had extreme amount of success. They had individual success. But I think the idea and brand of the Corner Boys is what people are referencing when you hear, when you hear, and when you hear Tanisha Kelly,
I Wish You Love Me.
I Wish You Love Me. You know, you think about that and you're hearing the Corner Boys in it, which was a cult classic, like literally a cult classic. One of the biggest New Orleans bounce songs today still is I Wish You Love Me. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I never heard the bounce version.
Yeah, no, I Wish You Love Me. Tanisha still goes to New Orleans to this day and performs it. That's how big the song is in New Orleans. You know what I mean? And because Turn the Lights On hadn't been invented, a lot of people didn't even know that I did that record. So, which I wrote it in my dream. It's crazy. I was just dreaming and I dreamed the entire song. And I got up and ran to D-Town's apartment, sang it to him. He produced it. I think Pierre produced the vocal and then on Tanisha, but I think he also, you know, you did the bridge and kind of arranged the music. So it's like Peace. I mean, D-Town started it, P finished it. But it was I Wish You Love Me was my whole dream. I literally dreamed of, even when I listened to, it's a guy who looked up to me, Bridge, I believe, and I heard him reproduce that same song on You Can't Raise a Man with Tanisha Kelly. I mean, for K. Michelle. When you listen to You Can't Raise a Man, it's not a coincidence because the kid was a big fan of mine. His name was Bridge. He was a producer of Bridge.
Yeah.
And he, when you listen to You Can't Raise a Man, it's just a reproduction of I Wish You Love Me. I don't think he did it intentionally because sometimes something is in your head.
Yeah.
But that song and those songs we created in that space was just bigger than I think the actual hits, you know.
Listen, just give me a second. We're going to get to Jesus.
Come on.
But I need to go R&B first because to understand where we are today, you got to understand where this started. So just give me a couple more moments.
You know, but to be totally honest,
please.
And I'm glad you said that because I was speaking to a young lady yesterday and I hope she watches this, but she's a young lady who I don't really communicate with often, but she made a comment to me and she said, I want to pivot from my stuff that I'm doing because I think God is not making it move forward because I'm not involving him and his name and all the stuff I'm doing. And I said, see, that's it's crazy how shallow people think God is.
Mm.
You know, and the arrogance of you to think that you need to announce him.
Come on.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what happens is people forget that it's God in you, right? So when you understand how powerful and all-knowing and how wise and omnipotent God is, he's omnipresent, means he's everywhere simultaneously. So for us to assume that, like when you said we're gonna get to that, we already got to it, right? So and that's no disrespect, but I just think that it's very, we need to be extremely clear, and to stop limiting God. Like a lot of times when people always say to me, "Well, you're gonna start a ministry one day," and I'm like, "It already started."
Come on.
And to limit God to a building, you know what I mean, is insane. And it was important for me, even as we get to the song "Live," it's important for me to understand, because my fear was, I see a lot of hypocrites in the church, right?
Yeah.
And it bothers me a lot. And I see them get exalted online. I see them, and then when you know them for real, you know the energy behind what's going on for real, it can kind of hurt you to see them, but to see them play with God like that. So to me, I felt like I'm not going to touch that, because I know there's people that can say, "Oh, I did this and this." So I was more in fear of, what I found is, no matter how good I feel like my heart is, or no matter how far I've come in my life as a man and the growth, anytime I speak something positive about what I'm doing or who I am, is always a peanut gallery that comes out and says, "Oh, don't believe him. He really is this. Or he did this to me. He hurt me. So don't buy it." So I always stayed away from, it was to the point where I would not even talk about my growth as a person. I wouldn't even talk about it. People would talk about, do interviews, and I would just be like, I don't want to, I just talk about the music. But sometimes when I get into manhood, I got into a space where because of a certain situation, I stopped speaking about my growth, because I was always afraid, like, all right, now that person or these people are going to come out and say, "Yeah, but remember when you did this," right? So I think that us understanding who God is and how beautiful he is and amazing the presence of God is, right? You can, you should stop limiting, because the same way I'm calling these guys hypocrites and watching a favor in their life, is because God loved them too. You know what I mean? It's like when I hate when people say, like, God don't play about me, and it's like, yeah, but he don't play about nobody.
Right?
Like, so, you know what I mean? It's almost like, oh, you gonna get yours, okay?
Right.
And you're gonna get yours too, right? Like, because it's never gonna end.
That's fine.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
because that's so important, because you got to be comfortable and prepared to watch God elevate and lift and exalt your enemies. And when you prepare for that, then you know how incredible his grace is, because I know what they did to me. So if he can exalt them, then what can he do for me? And then somebody should look at me and say, well, if God can exalt him,
That's right.
then what can he do for me? And the next one, and going and so forth. And there's a saying, like, if God bless my neighbor, I get excited because I know he in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's how we should look at life and look at how he operates.
He can't even help it. He can't even listen, but he's always been this, though. And I think that was part of the reason why I felt like it was important for people to get a chance to experience his heart this way. You know what I'm saying? Because people get things twisted. You know what I mean? You see the outside of a situation, but you don't know the heart of it. And I've been blessed to be in proximity with him and see his heart at work. You know what I mean? And understanding, like, I've seen a time, and I made it a point I wanted to share this story, because there was a moment in the studio with one of the interns that was working for us for free, no doubt. He was living in his car, broke Rico's heart that day, to the point where he was like, immediately got into action, helped him figure things out immediately. Like, but he was moved to the point of tears. You know what I mean? And I had never seen somebody overcome with the burden of someone else's reality in a moment where he could have easily been like, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
That's not my issue. But not only that, I've seen him in times of having to juggle both the joy of success and also the responsibility of caring for those around him. Because anybody who's been blessed by his friendship or by being familial with him knows this is somebody that's generous. You know what I mean?
You know, it's crazy you said it because what I've realized, I was talking to my therapist about it. I spend a lot of time alone. So what happens is I started realizing the reason why I spend so much time alone is because I'm exhausted from like, cause I can't be around everybody anymore because if you down, I won't be able to take it. Like I literally I'll struggle to make sure that everybody got it. And I don't think, like literally my arms can't even, you know, I just feel, so I kind of like, even like people the closest to me, like I haven't seen D-Town in like, you know, consistently in a few years. Not because I don't love me, my brother, but just around my brothers and my family, I just kind of like become more of a recluse because I know how much it takes for me to see people, you know, in certain, and not saying everybody's going to be doing bad, but just the idea of, oh man, what if somebody needs something? You know what I mean? What if I don't know if I have the energy to focus my attention on making sure everybody is good. You know what I mean? So,
Rico, you told me something back in the day. I was complaining one day about, man, I'm the only one in the studio. I'm not. I was going on, and you were like, Pierre, who has much has to do with it. You know, it was something
yeah, because
in that moment. I was like,
yeah, because he had to record us. He had to produce the vocal.
Yeah.
Sometimes he had to sing the song. So it was a lot that he had to do because he knew how to do everything.
Yeah.
So because you know how to do everything, bro, I'm sorry. You gonna have to
like matter of fact, just
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, yeah.
But
do you feel like your love for people came from your parents?
My dad.
He's a pastor.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
For my mom too, because my mom is just like very prideful woman.
Yeah.
Like she's a beautiful person.
Yes.
Oh my God, my mother's a beautiful person. But my dad is the most courteous and kindest person. So he looks everybody in the eye. He's so kind. He's so like he's just the example of kindness and greatness. Like, so I think that lives in me. And then my mother. So I think the courteous, the spirit of love and giving love and exuding love is my dad. But the giving is my mom. So my mom used to drive family members cross country. Like she would literally get in the car if somebody needed. I had a aunt who didn't drive. So it'd be a family reunion and my mother would drive down to get her, pick her up and drive all the way back and take it. Like she would do that all the time. She'd have friends, she would just get in the car and drive. Like up until recently, my mother can't do it anymore. But up until recently, she still was doing like that, driving people places and giving like, I used to send my mom like, you know, $40,000, $50,000 and I would have to tell her, Ma, don't tell anybody you got this money. You know what I mean? Like I would always send my parents a bunch of money when I would type of get checks.
Right.
And I used to have to tell her like, Ma, don't, you know what I mean? Do not
She would
tell
me.
him. Not saying she would tell anybody, but if somebody would say they needed something, she would just give him some. And the problem with giving somebody a large amount is now people are like, you know, Beverly just gave me $2,000. So now everybody like, now they come around here and just start going, well, I'm just, my medical, I've been going through this.
Sam
and I'm like, Ma, like
Yeah.
they're gonna do that to you.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I learned to give from. Me, I'm uncomfortable watching people go through things. You know what I mean? I watch, you know, P struggle with certain things when he had his first child, and I watched him go through certain things that I just was uncomfortable with because I knew it's hard.
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable.
No.
You know, I was very serious uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, are they trying to take your license? Like, how you gonna get the work? Like, how they go? Like, how they supposed to make money? Like, I just didn't understand it. Like, they want you to give money, and because you don't have the money, they want to take your way of getting to the money. So let's fix that, bro. Let's just get rid of that problem. Yeah, it just don't make sense to me. So, and what's also makes me uncomfortable is that when I was going through things, I just didn't like the fact that at first I assumed that the guys who were like my big homies, I assumed that if they knew I was going through something, they would be that way towards me. And people aren't like that. People aren't like that. So to me, it makes me extremely uncomfortable. And a lot of people aren't uncomfortable with your struggle. A lot of people could literally watch you struggle and be like, damn, that's crazy. All right, let's move on. That just can't. I just not.
That is that.
Now, if we close,
Yep.
if we close. You know what I mean? It's just we can't be close, and we can't be brothers on this thing and not brothers on the struggle.
Do you remember night of my 30th birthday, right?
Yeah.
We're in the club, right? Celebrating like we should be.
Yeah.
We're young, right?
Yeah.
But Rico, he turns to me, says, "Hey man, I have my assistant book you a ticket so you can go spend time with your daughter." I lost
In the club.
I'm in the club, boo-hoo, fly, like a baby. I said, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
At this point, I'm going through my first divorce, and I hadn't seen my daughter in some months at this point.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he saw how it was affecting me. And I'm saying that to piggyback off of your story, to just support that with real life facts.
Yeah.
The man saw what I was powering myself through. Now I'm still showing up and doing what's being asked of me, but at the end of the day, it's killing me. I'm missing my daughter. The sensibility hit him. Hey, he calls his assistant, book Pierre a flight, get him to his daughter. And from that moment on, it just was like, man.
What made me more happy out of the situation was we worked and he got to a space where he paid off. It was something that he had to pay off. It was the
Rick Ross record that helped us.
Yeah, he paid off something and he was able to. No, it was before Ross. It was before Ross. It was the other thing because we placement wasn't the problem. We got tons of placements. It's about the song meaning something, but it was a bunch of placements we got. Like I think we did like 30 or 40, like something like that. And I remember he was making money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so to me, that was like, all right, now he can pay the stuff. I remember him coming to me in the studio, like, paid it off. I got my license back because they was taking his license.
Yes.
Like, y'all want him to pay child support, but y'all want to take his license so he can't pay.
It was so crazy.
It was still to me is the craziest thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's, so, it was one of those things that makes me happy when I see people doing. And by the way, anybody knows me, I like nice things, but I do for people more than I would do myself. And that I enjoy that more than anything, and enjoy people elevating. So to know that you got this record and you're doing this, you got this is going for you. That to me makes me. I enjoy it. That's why I created, different things I do, Songcraft and We Love Music Conference and helping guys. Because I just that's to me is like the epitome of wealth. Like that is wealth. Like I haven't gained monetary wealth yet, as far as, being rich and being wealthy is two different things. But I think I'm so wealthy when I watch people, whether they acknowledge it or not, but when I watch them further themselves, in situations, that makes me happy.
Someone argue that's the best kind of wealth.
It is, because it feels good. It genuinely feels good. You know what I mean?
We rounded third base. But I think this is the essence of the project. It's brotherhood. It's individuals who have done so much in the industry, expressing the side that most will never know, right? This philanthropic side, this pastoral side. It's wild knowing that your dad's a pastor and seeing how that has influenced you, and now seeing this come out in the music. I want to tell you one story. I have to say it because we're on camera. I have to say this. I was 16 when I heard Throwback. 16. And I remember where I was. I was in France on like a high school trip. And I don't know what I was going through at that time, but that was when I gave my life to Christ at 16. And so Throwback for me, I was on a bus riding through France, thinking about this life change I was going through. I was wilding before that, like just wild. And Throwback was like the soundtrack, and I'm not lying about this. I probably listened to Throwback on the bus in the mountains of France 20 times within a 5-hour period. We would get on the bus, I put on. This is when you had CDs, so you just
put on repeat.
Right.
Yeah.
You got just went back. Boom, boom, boom. Just play. I mean, boom, boom, boom. And I remember crying to Throwback. And the song wasn't about Jesus. It's not about this.
That's why I gotta tell you, man. When God is in you, all right. I'll give you another example. I was in France when I was 16. When I was 16, I was in France crying over a song. Wow. Carl Thomas had made emotional. I was on a senior trip, high school trip.
Whoa.
You can Google this story. I've told this story many times. It's online. I was on my high school trip, 16 years old, in Paris, France, and I heard Emotional by Carl Thomas, and I got so overwhelmed with sadness. And I'm going to tell you why. Throughout my whole high school career, told everybody, I'm going to make it, 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 I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it in the music business, I'm going to do this, I'm going to become the biggest rapper in the world. And when I heard Carl Thomas, when I was in high school, Mesa album came out, I remember Life After Death came out, so I knew greatness. But it was different because I just graduated high school. I was about to graduate in a few weeks. Now life is serious. So when I heard Carl Thomas and I said, it hit me. This is so good. I can't compete with this. How am I going to be? If I have to be this good to make it in the music industry, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't even have a person to make my music. I don't know anybody. All the reality started hitting me, and I'm in Paris, and I remember we had chaperones, and I just left my hotel and I just started walking the streets of Paris. They couldn't even enjoy the rest of the high school kids couldn't enjoy it because there was a search for me.
Oh, wow.
I'm not making this up. It was a search for me because I just started wandering the streets of Paris. And randomly they were on a bus and they saw me and they were screaming at me and, what are you doing? And I just was in a daze. I just couldn't even respond to them. But I was so sad because I thought to myself, oh my God, if this is the level I have to be on, can I actually make it? And the fact that I'm graduating now. So now I don't have this I can just say I'm a dreamer while I go to sleep on my mother's basement.
Right,
This is real life.
Right.
And it hit me and I said, all right, so after that, 2 days of sadness, I was like, all right, let's go. And that is crazy. I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm like, that's nuts, in Paris on a senior trip. At 16, because I graduated when I was 16.
2 questions. How does it feel? And this is the last question for you two. How does it feel for you when you know your song has impacted somebody in this way? Because I'm sure I'm not the first person that said this about I'm sure you've heard all types of things. And then 2, when you think about expressing your faith through your gift in this unique way, what does that mean to you? And then same for you.
So, I've been in the presence of God, right? And I'm going to tell you, I was riding down the street. I had this one, I had the big boy Phantom. So I'm riding down the street one day and God sat in the car with me. So it's almost like you take all of the air out of the room and you're grasping to breathe. But I knew exactly what was going on. I knew exactly why I was feeling it. And it was almost like I kept looking to the passenger seat because that's all I could do because I just knew it was his presence. It overwhelmed me so much. And if I could describe to anybody what it felt like I was ashamed. It felt like I was walking around and I was naked and everybody had clothes on. And I was so ashamed and embarrassed. But the person that I was so embarrassed was saying, no, you're fine, and offering me a blanket. But I felt dirty. I felt I felt like everything about me was exposed because of how pure. All right, if you have dirt on you and then you walk into a room full of dirt, he's like, all right. But as soon as you lay down on a white sheet and you reveal how dirty you are. So, I was in his presence and I broke down and I cried and I was on Flamingo, turned on Flamingo in Miami, in Weston, Southwest Ranches actually. I was making a right and it was a McDonald's and I was turning to McDonald's and I stopped the car and I broke down crying and an older black woman pulled up next to me and she just gave me a look and she said, yep. She didn't know. She don't know what's going on. She knew. She knew why I was crying. She saw it in my face. And so this is what I want to say there. When you felt God's presence, when you have understood what it feels like to be in his presence, I've been touched by a pastor and anointed by the oil many times in my life. But one time Bishop Long said something to me and touched my head and I fell out in the middle of Newburgh. And all I remember is when I got up, nobody was there. It was like hundreds of people and he was going up and I was on the floor. When I got up, service had been going on and I just All I remember is just that. When you feel his presence and you understand how powerful he is, you can confidently do anything that you do because you know that his power is so powerful. Okay. When you know his power, there's no question for me of whether I'm doing his work or not. There's no question for me ever am I being, I know that I'm being led by his spirit. And I've said the prayer about 12, 15 years ago before my son was born. My son is 15. I think it was about 15 years old. And I said, God, you direct me. I'll come to you and ask you for direction, but I want you to direct me so much so that in a way that wherever I go, I know it's because you're leading me that way. So because I felt his presence and I know who he is, it's not surprising anymore when people are moved by the music or they move by this or they move by that. Because when I prayed that prayer to God, I didn't feel his presence in the car until maybe 7 or 8 years later. I think my son was 5, so about 5 or 6 years later. So I remember it so heavily and I know what it is. When I accepted Christ, I was 6 years old at Lake Geneva at a retreat and they didn't even tell me to come down to the altar. God spoke to me and I knew it was real. I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't even believe none of this mumbo jumbo that people talk about God or Jesus. I wouldn't believe any of it if I had not felt his presence. It's been times where I used to ask myself, do I even believe? Because I used to judge by people. I used to watch this person be fake and mean and nasty. And I would watch this pastor be fornicating with this one and that one. And I used to watch this one, this and this one. It wasn't until I felt his presence that I said, I'm unshakable. It's nothing that you can tell me. There's nobody that can come in here and tell me he's not real. I felt his presence as sure as I see you standing sitting right next to me right now. So, if you ask me, what does it feel like? It doesn't even feel like it's me. It feels like we all watching God's work. So that's why I'm able to be kind, because my humility towards him is like, I don't, anybody who really knows me. Now, there's myths and legends about me, about how I behave or he's arrogant and all this stuff. That's people who I've helped and stopped helping, or somebody who couldn't get close enough to me to get to know me so they kind making up their own rhetoric. But anybody who knows me, I've been consistent. How I behave right now, how I'm talking right now is how I talked 20 years ago when I met Pierre. Like, it's not, I didn't become this thing and I've evolved, but as far as my heart, this heart has been this heart. So, wow. I want to just say, if you don't know that what you're doing is for God, you don't know anything. Everything you're doing, when you know God, when you acknowledge his presence, you can really have faith in knowing that wherever I'm going, he's leading me. Because he'll do it. He'll do it in such a powerful way that you'll get frustrated and say, God, what am I doing? And you have to remember, he's saying, I'm allowing all of this to get you to this space. You had to be down at the bankruptcy office talking this because you had to meet this person who was down here, and then you connected to this one. Or because you wasn't at that place on that day, these people were able to meet. Because if you would have met, you'd have been there. They would have been giving you the attention. And because you wasn't able to be there, you was here. They was able to connect and they was able to do great things. But then it all is his design. So no, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't make me, you know what I mean? That's why when people come to me like, oh, I love your music, I just graciously thank you. But it doesn't surprise me anymore. It's not, because it's not me. It's like if you go bought a nice outfit and somebody says it's a great outfit, you're like, yeah, it is. I didn't make it. I bought it because I thought the same thing you think. That's how I feel about God. That's a great thing you did. It is. Thank God, because I didn't do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I would have tapped out a long time ago, bro. If it was left to me, I would have tapped out a long time. There's no way I could keep this up. Especially through what I've been through. It's no way. So.
See, I think
jump in, Pete.
Like, people see the success, they see the accolades, they see you at your peak, right? They don't know the process that informs all of that. And to be honest with you, it's those seasons of brokenness that produce the anointing, the authentic anointing, right? That oil that God graces us with to be able to help people break out of their paradigms, break out of their perspectives and strongholds even. Because somebody is out there thinking that just being trapped by their own limiting thoughts about themselves. And what you shared in your testimony is a testament that God is everywhere. There's nowhere you can be that God isn't. That alone ought to just give a lift of a weight off your shoulders. Because the idea that you are somewhere and God is not with you, that's a sensory malconcept, you know. At the end of the day, God is always with us. That's the number one rule of just life, I believe. Understanding that he's always there. When you ask about the music, though, I can't help but just stand on that, because that's a great framework. Understanding the gift that you carry, you know, like you said, it's beyond me. You know what I mean? It's in me, but it's also beyond me. Like, so when people respond favorably to what you create, you know that it's the creator in you. That it's all to glorify God anyway. You know, God is going to get his glory. That, you talked about it earlier, the sovereignty of God. Like, listen, you think you're big enough to mess up God's plan? Not that is pride.
Yeah.
That is easy.
My dad told me that. I remember I was going through a terrible time. I got sued for $4.5 million. I was about to lose my house. I was just crazy. My life was in shambles. And I said, I feel like God is punishing me. And my dad said, how arrogant are you? If you think that God could be mad enough at you to take something from you, that means that you were great enough to earn it.
Come on.
My dad told me that. I remember being like, whoa. How arrogant are you to think that God could be so upset with you that he takes something? That would have to mean that you were great enough or good enough to earn it. Nothing you have, you earned. Are you crazy? That grace that you earned, like the grace that you have over your life, you didn't earn that.
That's right.
What? You know what I mean? So
thank you, Lord.
That's why in that moment in the car was so overwhelming, because it was the actual confirmation of all of that. When you say that God is everywhere, like, you know, you think you hiding under the bed, and when you turn around and you see he was right there the whole time, you like, it was like this, the shock, the realization of who he is in his fullness. I felt it all at once. There's no way I could ever describe to you. I could give you examples of what it felt like, but when everybody who's been in this present, they know. I didn't know. I just see people crying at church and falling on their face. I just see my mother in her bedroom, just on her face, crying and praying to God. And I didn't understand, like, what is she crying about? She was she felt him with her. That's right. Man, that to me is incredible. So to everybody who has a problem with me, everybody who is watching this and trying to find ways to position me against them or against, I just pray and ask God to just sit down with you. You don't got to worry about me. You don't got to worry about any enemy you have or think you have, anybody you think. I pray and ask that God sit down next to you. And when you feel his presence, I guarantee your perspective on a lot will change. I have my bad days. I get angry. I get upset about things that happen in my life. But every time I get a reminder of his presence, who he is, the fullness. You know what I mean?
Last question. We're going to end here. I'm going to start with you, Rico, and I'm going to let you have the last word.
Okay.
Brother, since this is your project.
Hey.
You said on your Instagram, this is your first gospel song.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? What does that mean for you?
You know what? It was an amazing opportunity that my brother Pierre gave me to speak about something that I'm so proud of, and something that I've never shied away from in my verbiage and my interviews and my, you know, the way when people get close enough to me to have conversations, and I've never shied away from it. Musically, I always just took it as, I didn't want to project that musically because I felt like it was hypocritical. But it was a reminder of God's grace, a reminder of how silly that even sounds. You know what I mean? Like, it's like when people would say, I don't want to go I'm smelling like the club. I don't want to go to church. And it's like, yeah, but God was in the club too.
Come on.
You know what I mean? So that's the exact same way I felt about it. Like, it was God saying, like, don't be ridiculous. And even when I made the post, it wasn't me. I was thinking those thoughts. I was sitting down in the morning thinking those thoughts. And I knew, like, my brother got a record coming out. And you don't want to do a song with somebody and I help them. And I didn't know how to help them. I didn't want to just post it on my story. I felt like, am I a hypocrite? And God said, just say that. Just say that. What you just expressed to me, just say that. And I turned the camera on and said it. So it is a blessing because it was freeing for me. And that's why the song means a lot to me. And not just because it's with a dear brother, but it's more about the revelation and the ministry that song gave for me personally.
P, what does this moment mean for you to be here with Rico? We just heard the vast history, the brotherhood. Yeah. I'm emotional. I'm just honored to be in this moment. I feel like a fly on the wall. Yeah. What does this mean for you?
Man, it's a dream come true, honestly. It's a full circle moment. Because as I said, I was sharing before with the intent of getting to the point of the next time Rico asked me to sing something, everything exploded for us, and it just signified to me about knowing how to reverence the gifts around you. God doesn't orchestrate anything by accident. Everything he's doing and putting together, it's by his divine knowing of everything, essentially. And so to me, the full circle of this moment is in a moment where I'm taking a leap as well to do something of my own in the way of this compilation project. I felt it powerful to be able to connect with somebody who propels so many other seasons and moments of my career. Yeah. And it meant the world to me that he said yes, and he didn't take a long time to answer. He didn't take a long time to turn it around. I could sense his inhibition about it a little bit, but also, like always, and consistent of his character, he showed up. His loyalty prevailed yet again, and he's just a demonstration, in my opinion, of God's grace, and the way of his brotherhood and friendship over the years. And I'm just honored, that he jumped on the record with me, and not only that, but that he was willing to be as vulnerable in that moment, and even in sharing his testimony about the conviction of God's presence. A lot of times we don't understand people's expression because we don't know the journey behind how they get to that place of just being broken before God and just surrendering and being able to lift your hands confidently and know that God is with me. I don't have to fear the opinions of people who don't know our relationship. They don't know the way that you see me, the way that you know me. They don't know my heart. They may have been, offended by my actions or by my words. Right. And we have to take accountability for that. But like I said, one thing and we all do it in different seasons. I know you've been in this season. Sure. I've been in those places. And even to hear you talk about speaking with a therapist, like, you got to do the practical things, but trust God to do the spiritual things, because it's the things that only he can do. And, in his presence, there's fullness of joy, right? So in this moment, I'm full of joy because I can sense God's presence here in this moment of brotherhood and just being vulnerable and honest about his love for us, and how it overrides and prevails over our own proclivities and challenges. It draws us to a deeper space in him. Even I think over time, that's the whole point, right? With loving kindness have I drawn thee. God draws us with his love and with his kindness, and he brings us to a place of relationships that say, hey, there's nothing you can do that will make me cast you away. I love you. You're mine. And out of that, our hearts open up. And it's that experience that you talked about in the car. It's that moment where your heart opens up and God said, I can handle all of that. Just give me everything that's in there, all of it. I got it covered, and I'm going to give you a grace to accelerate. I'm going to give you favor to come into higher places and all of that stuff. It's just like, so this moment means the world to me. It's like a new season, a new breath of fresh air, and I hope that everyone that has a chance to see this is just blessed by it, and drawn to a deeper place of relationship with God.
Pray for us.
Man. Lord, we thank you for this time that you have ordained. We thank you for this conversation of just brothers sharing our history, but also understanding that you have a future in mind and a hope for each of us, Lord God, and every person watching this video, Lord God, that you would remind them that you have a hope and a future for them. And it's through your Son, Jesus Christ. And that through our confession of faith, Lord, that you would bring them into relationship with you and help to perfect them through the process of sanctification and bring them to a place of completion in you, Lord. And we thank you right now that everyone that hears this will be inspired and blessed and uplifted in your Son's name, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Hey, thanks so much for tuning into The Narrative with Sam Collier, the Rico Love, the Pierre Medor. I want to personally thank both of you for your contribution to music. It's meant so much to me, I think to the world around us, and to your contribution to the kingdom. In a world where there's so many narratives, we hope we've gotten this one right. Go download the new single, Live, with Pierre Medor and Rico Love and the Story Collective. We'll talk to you soon.
Let's go.